the weather forecast with Coloca and its multipurpose banquet hall, Il Palazzo.
Hello to all and thanks for joining us on this evening edition of the weather forecast. Between tonight and tomorrow morning, temperatures will vary between 13 to 25 degrees all over the national territory. For instance, in some parts of the far north region, we'll have 14 degrees, 16 degrees in the Adamawa, 18 degrees in the east, 22 in the center, 24 in the south, and 25 in the littoral regions of the country. So make sure you take appropriate measures throughout the evening. Now, let's look at the map in greater details. Let's start with the north region, where there will be a surge in temperature throughout the evening. Same situation in the morning with the town of Vidéo having as high as 25 degrees. To continue, let's go to the northwest region, where no precipitation is announced throughout the region, with the town of Womb having as high as 19 degrees in the morning. And to end, let's go to the west region of the country, where the sky will be void of clouds throughout the evening, with the town of Mbuda having as high as 19 degrees in the morning. Before we go, I'd like to invite you to go and visit the Nkunja waterfall in the Noon division of the west region of the country. Thank you very much for watching this edition of the weather forecast. Goodbye.
President Paul Biya has reached out to distressed cries of victims of terrorism. Reacting to their situation in the northwest region, a consignment of goods and cash was handed to them through Minister Atanga Njipol. NGUIAMBA is dead. Former Deputy General Manager of CRTV died today in Yaoundé. The mayor of Lolodolf is reported to have died from a malaise. Get reactions in this newscast. Cameroon's intermediate Lions will be up against Rwanda tomorrow in a test match as part of preparations for the upcoming African Nations Championship. And those are top stories. Good evening and thanks for joining us on the 7:30 News. I'm Gladys Tata. The Garden of Education and Healing Orphanages in Bamenda has benefited from relief material from the President of the Republic, Paul Biya, following an influx of about 70 persons, mostly women and children. They are all victims of the armed groups in Befang, a locality in Menchum division of the Northwest region. The humanitarian assistance, made up of mattresses, toiletries, food items, and the sum of 1.5 million CFA francs for their medical needs, were handed over today at the Ntenefo neighborhood on behalf of the head of state by the Minister of Territorial Administration, Paul Atanganji. Here's an excerpt of the minister's declaration selected by Kilanda Ndifon, Special Envoy to Bamenda.
It's an emergent humanitarian plan of action put in place by the head of state, President Paul Biya, and we have a lot of support from the Chantal Biya Foundation. So whenever we have information that there's an orphanage somewhere, there are IDPs or people who have been abandoned, automatically we reactivate all the structures of the humanitarian plan of action so that we can take care and give immediate assistance to those who are vulnerable. And the vulnerable population is one of the biggest components in this plan of action put in place by President Paul Biya, which is being managed by the Minister of Territorial Administration. So when the governor gave me the report that this orphanage is here and that we have new people coming in, my immediate reaction was that let us come and visit the place, give the first assistance, what they call first aid. Then after we see gradually what can be done. You can see the material that we have brought from the humanitarian plan of action given by President Paul Biya, and at the same time we'll provide some financial assistance because from the structures I'm seeing in place, and the kids have to go to school, they need medication, they need special attention. So apart from this, what has been done from the humanitarian plan of action, I think we'll give a support of 1.5 million francs CFA. So I'll work with the governor, we'll work with the senior division officer, so we'll see what are the immediate actions we can put in place.
And close to 80 internally displaced persons fleeing the socio-political crisis in Menchum division have arrived at Bamenda-based orphanage in deplorable health conditions. Medical reports from the staff of the orphanage indicate that some of the IDPs are suffering from malaria and most children are suffering from malnutrition. Following the visit of the Minister of Territorial Administration to the orphanage, CRTV's Valerine Sala took keen interest on the living conditions of the IDPs and now reports.
These are visible signs of the negative impact of conflict. 79 victims in number, young old, women and men alike, all with similar storylines of sufferings provoked by the socio-political crisis. Their departure point in Menchum division was precipitated and heartbreaking.
I'm from Fang. We were just living in the village. Some people just come and burn our village. So we ran and go to the bush, to the forest. We make two weeks in the forest before coming out.
Cutting fruits in the bush and managing to live. So we thank God that God helped us to trek for 3 days before reaching Bafmen.
They arrived this orphanage at hotspot in Bamenda in a state of deficiency in many aspects.
They arrived here almost a week after they have not taken a bath. Okay, you can imagine. So hungry, everything totally naked, nothing else. Apart from the dresses they had on themselves, there was nothing else.
They are lodged here, their conditions assessed and rated as deplorable.
Some are already with diarrhea, some are with malaria, while majority of them, like the babies, they are malnourished.
A challenging humanitarian picture that must be tackled with concerted efforts.
The first basic need they have is that of even having a home. Their homes have been burnt down.
The 79 victims of the socio-political crisis brought to this hotspot orphanage in Bamenda in the past 2 days takes the number of the needy in the orphanage to over 100.
Media men and women in the Far North region have taken the engagement to set up the production of interactive radio contents that will help to eradicate violence and build resilience amongst the local population. The commitment was taken during a 4-day seminar organized by the non-governmental organization Equal Access, whose officials enjoined the media practitioners to avoid content that might hamper peace and incite violence. Dorcas can be with details from CRTV Far North in Marwa.
The Far North region has been facing security challenges posed by the Boko Haram sect. Cognizant of the role of the media to trigger behavioral change, men and women of the media were reminded to produce more content geared towards tackling violence and also programs that will strengthen community resilience.
This workshop focuses on building capacity of media actors to make sure that they can continue to produce radio programming of a very high quality. That includes interactive radio programs that engages young people on a very important phenomenon, and that is violent extremism.
The forum, which regrouped media practitioners from the 6 divisions of the region, has been enriching.
I'm very glad to get some knowledge concerning what Equal Access International wants to implement in our side concerning, the fight against extremism violence.
The seminar has enabled the participants to take a firm stand to shape the society positively, deliver the right information, and avoid any program that might hamper peace and sustainable development.
The Northwest Army Rescue Unit has embarked on a water distribution scheme to improve some 30,000 litres of potable water to inhabitants of Bamenda. The initial distribution phase, which kicked off this Friday, February 21, 2020, targets some of the most affected neighborhoods like Meta, Ndamukong, and Hotspot. Kilo Valérien Sala reports that the move by the Army Rescue Unit is intended to address the acute water scarcity in Bamenda.
It is a past but also a present challenge for the city of Bamenda. Water scarcity. With dry taps come alternative sources of water for survival.
Carry water from the west, water that can use to do laundry and all that. The way it comes to drinking water, you have to look for gallons. When it's a place over here, the 500 meters from here, there's no issue of months. It's something like years now, because I've been here for like 4 years. And since I came, we're facing water crisis. The water is going to help us. Because that if they help us now and then that's consistent.
The Army Rescue Unit embarks on a water crisis rescue mission with this truck of 7,000 litres of water destined for some of the hardest hit areas in Bamenda like Meta, Hotspot and Ndamukong neighborhoods.
By the end of the day, we'll be distributing at least 30,000 litres of water to the population. For today, we are working as we can. Okay, it's just a spirit activity that we are making today, but whenever possible, we will continue doing it.
The population is thus counting on the sustainability of this move, but also on the competent water provision structures to resolve the prolonged problem of water scarcity in Bamenda.
And on to one of these headline story, Emmanuel NGUIAMBA, Mayor of Lolodolf is no more. The former Director General of CAMTEL and Deputy Director General of CRTV died Saturday, breaking Sunday, after he was rushed to the Yaoundé General Hospital after he suffered a malaise. In the following report, Beatrice Ngum comes back to the circumstances around his death and first reactions.
The sad news was broken in the early hours of Sunday and many could hardly believe it. But a visit to his Fandena residence in Yaoundé gave them answers. The Patriarch Emmanuel NLOUTSIRI has bowed out of the scene.
My dad passed away early this morning from discomfort at Hôpital Général of Yaoundé. He was starting discomfort yesterday in the end of the day, and then we are bringing him to the hospital. But it was so difficult, and he passed away this morning. He was dynamic. He was a man of rigorous trading principle. It is in this principle that he educated us. It's a big loss from Lolodolf community.
Family and friends converge at the residence of the former mayor of Lolodolf, one-time Director General of CAMTEL and Deputy Director General of CRTV, to sympathize with his family. He earned respect from former colleagues, friends, and his Ngumba community while he was in active service, reason why they trooped to his residence to mourn with his family, and amongst the mourners, his sister, Marceline, unconsolable. At 80, Emmanuel NGUIAMBA leaves behind a widow and 5 children to survive him. He died few months to his 80th birthday of August 31st, 1940.
Meanwhile, the remains of late Professor Paul-Henri Amvam-Zolo have been laid to rest in his native Bieng in the Ocean Division of the South Region. To accompany the Professor Emeritus of Biochemistry and former Rector of the University of Ngaoundéré to his resting place was the university community led by the Secretary General in the Ministry of Higher Education, a cross-section of the elite of the South Region, and hundreds of mourners. Clarence Aze reports from CRTV South in Ebolova.
The former colleagues, students, friends and relatives of Professor Emeritus Paul-Henri Amvam-Zolo were inconsolable as the casket carrying the body of the biochemistry genius were being lowered into his final resting place. The demise of the former rector of the University of Ngaoundéré, former dean of the Faculty of Science of the University of Douala, who once served as governing board member of the Association of African Universities, AAU, is a huge loss to the higher education family and the South region in particular.
Together we have worked hand in hand to promote our party in this area of our country. One of my souvenirs, someone really devoted to what he was doing. It's really a very sad occasion for us.
Professor Emeritus Paul-Henri Amvam-Zolo, who broke his pen last January 14th at the age of 69, will be remembered for his commitment to the development of African higher education institutions through training, research, and service for solving Africa's pressing problems.
And may their souls rest in perfect peace. Some politicians in Cameroon have described as undiplomatic and unfair the French President Emmanuel Macron's utterances concerning his country's relations with Cameroon. The anger was expressed after President Macron, in response to questions posed to him by an activist of Cameroon origin, said he had been exerting pressure on President Paul Biya to take certain decisions, including the freedom given to an opposition leader who was jailed for acts of violence against the state of Cameroon. Moki Edwin Kinzeka gathered some reactions and now reports.
It's been headline news, with many radio and television stations expressing their disappointment. For instance, Vision Card Television says it is unimaginable that the President of France, Emmanuel Macron, spoke about President Paul Biya using such undiplomatic words.
The speech or the words and the manner in which they were spoken or the tone were a little
insensitive or paternalistic or condescending, that kind of thing, given the history of relations between Africa and Europe. I think France has a lot to benefit by keeping relations between ourselves and Cameroon.
Moi, en tant que président national du Front pour le Salut national du Cameroun,
he says, as president of the National Salvation Front Party, he finds President Emmanuel Macron's declarations an abuse to Cameroon's dignity. He says the Cameroonian people should stand by the Republican institutions and elected officials and immediately forget such words used by President Macron.
Nous attendons évidemment la réponse solennelle et officielle du gouvernement.
Au Cameroun, comme ailleurs en Afrique.
He says colonial perceptions about Africa still continue till today, and that Africans should continue fostering their independence by thinking about what they should do themselves. He says President Macron's statements are rather unfortunate.
Je pense que c'est ça qui est le plus intéressant pour nous.
To many, French President Emmanuel Macron spoke as if he had lessons to give an elected African leader, failing to understand that the two countries are sovereign states.
A higher education system that promotes research, innovation, and professionalization is the core of a convention signed between FIGEPAC and CAMES Saturday in Ouagadougou. The aim of both structures is to provide a sustainable study environment for African students in the CEMAC sub-region, taking into consideration the needs in the job market, especially with Africa's fast-evolving digital economy. Yoti Kaleli Songe is there. Her report.
The deal is sealed. The Forum of Universities and prestigious professional higher learning institutes of Central Africa, FIGEPAC, and the African and Malagasy Council for Higher Education, CAMES, are now partners. Both structures will henceforth work in synergy to revamp the higher education sector in the CEMAC sub-region such that professionalization and innovation will be core.
The dream is to fight against ignorance. CAMES and FIGEPAC are together to go forward, to bring the development in Africa, because education is the key. If we want to fight against ignorance, we would ask our children to go to school. And we are really happy of signing this agreement.
To achieve their objective, the strategy is clear.
That of reinforcing competitiveness in the higher education sector and promoting research.
We want that parents who wish to finance their children's studies begin by looking at the existing potential in Central Africa before considering sending them abroad.
Prior to the signing of the convention, the Secretary General of CAMES received the FIGEPAC delegation in audience for a brief working session. With a contract to collaborate for the next 3 years validated and the guest book signed, FIGEPAC has its eyes fixed on the upcoming forum to take place from May 27 to 28 this year in Congo-Brazzaville, where the various schools from the 6 countries of the CEMAC sub-region will showcase their respective study options to the student population. In the meantime, the FIGEPAC delegation joined the CAMES staff in wishing a Happy New Year to the Secretary General.
The 2020 edition of the Musical, Artistic, Industrial and Commercial Fair, dubbed FOMARIC, has been launched in Douala by the Minister of Trade, Luc Magloire Tangana, in the presence of the Minister of Arts and Culture, Bidung Pat. Promoted by legendary Cameroonian artist Nkoti Francois, FOMARIC has drawn over 500 enterprises in and out of Cameroon. As Gladys Atemban Chechuma Banla reports from CRTV Littoral, the event will run till the 8th of March.
It is an annual rendezvous that has been respected for 27 years now by entrepreneurs, researchers from all walks of life, artists and visitors. An initiative lauded by Minister Bidung Pat of Arts and Culture and Luc Magloire Tangana of Trade, all present at this edition of the Musical, Artistic, Industrial and Commercial Fair FOMARIC. While saluting the perseverance and endurance of the promoter, Nkoti Francois, they said government attaches a lot of importance to such festivals. This justifies why this edition has been placed under the patronage of the Prime Minister, head of government. Just like other cultural and commercial festivals, FOMARIC promotes culture, animation, entrepreneurship and competitiveness. It is equally a forum to exchange know-how, goods and services, and attract investors, as well as enable artists project themselves. Participation at the fair is not a tradition only to Cameroonians, but also nationals of other neighboring countries. As the Nigerian Consul General to Douala explains, it is a manifestation of who we are, especially as Nigeria has a connected history with Cameroon. The event, attended by artists, administrative and traditional authorities, among others, was graced by presentations from traditional dance groups.
Over in the East region, Cameroon and the Sanga International Foundation are putting in place strategies to give a new impetus to the East Region National Park. This was during a consultation meeting in Bertoua, chaired by Governor Gregoire Mvongo in the presence of both local and international organizations working with the park. Tala LT reports from CRTV East in Bertoua.
The Lobeke National Park in the East region of Cameroon is part of the Sanga Trinational Foundation. These three parks in Cameroon, Congo, and the Central African Republic cover a surface area of 4.4 million hectares and is home to a wide variety of animal and tree species. The management of the Lobeke National Park, like the two others, rely on a handful of organizations, with each playing a specific role. In order to give a new impetus to the running of this park, the Worldwide Fund for Nature and the Sanga Trinational Foundation, in the presence of East Governor Gregoire Mvongo, brought together the various stakeholders. In order for these actions to be concretized, experts say government's action is important. The Sanga Trinational Foundation will in the days ahead construct a health center, a solar energy station, and a base for eco guards of the Lobeke National Park to better their working conditions while waiting for the powers that be to deploy more human and material resources for the protection of the park.
The population of Dizange in the Sanaga Maritime Division of the Littoral region have been called upon to lead efforts with governments and other partners to preserve the environment from invasion of endangered species. This was made during a celebration to mark this year's edition of World Wetlands Days, observed under the slogan Wetlands and Biodiversity. Details with Gerard Nanji.
Maintaining the production capacity of goods and services in the environment and the preservation of biodiversity was the focus in this year's celebration in Cameroon. Under the supervision of the Ministry of Environment, Protection of Nature and Sustainable Development alongside other partners, the day's celebration was characterized by a visit to the 40-kilometer square Lake Osa Wildlife Reserve, where it has been discovered that there is a proliferation of Salvinia molesta, an invasive species. Experts say this poses a serious threat.
This plant is forming a large carpet on the surface of the water, which prevents light to penetrate the water column. Consequently, the amount of fish in the lake has drastically reduced, and with a significant impact on the life of fishermen.
However, plans of actions are being put in place to mitigate the effects.
We will discuss with the Ministry in charge of Environment and the Ministry in charge of Forest to see how further we can go for practical solutions.
There is a need to join our effort and preserve all those resources.
It will be recalled that Lake Osa Reserve is just one amongst the already identified wetland zones in the country, which ought to be preserved jealously for sustainable development.
Installed executives of the Center South Federation of the Seventh-day Adventist Church have been challenged to conquer more souls within the next 5 years. The call was made in Nangai Boko, Upper Sanaga Division of the Center Region during an electives General Assembly. The event was held under the theme Fidelity in Christian Life. Victor Siga has more.
These Christians of the Seventh-day Adventist Church came from all over Cameroon with mission, installing the new shepherds of the Center South Federation.
The Seventh-day Adventist Church is an organized church. We have several entities that was missioned according to the path. I think now we have 7 conferences and 1 mission in Cameroon. And today we were here to declare this entity a conference.
Converging on Nangai Boko, Andre Bilunga Ome was chosen to lead the federation for the next 5 years. Within this period, the new executive is expected to conquer more souls for Christ.
Every one of them, even from the membership to leadership, they to take responsibility. So a great opportunity is given to them to serve the Lord and to be a blessing to this country and to the world. And I pray, Almighty God, to bless this new entity, to bless the administrators, and to bless Cameroon.
During the gathering, it was announced that a medical school owned by the church will go operational this year. Meanwhile, the next major assembly will take place in 2025.
Still in religion, Christians of the Église Presbyterian Camerounese Jongolo Parish in Yaoundé have been exhorted not only to be messengers of God's word but emulate Jesus Christ. The appeal was made during a divine service to mark week-long activities of the 16th edition of the parish. Gerald Nanji has more.
In songs of praise and worship, faithful of Église Presbyterian Camerounaise Njongolo, the oldest Protestant parish in Yaoundé, celebrated the 16th edition of their feast day in style and color. Anchoring his message on Luke chapter 15 verse 7, the chief celebrant admonished the Christians to take the gospel of Jesus Christ to the ends of the world while living by example.
The announcement of the gospel is not only the work of the pastor. It is the work of all Christians everywhere we are, not only by talking or by singing, but our manner of acting. If we are acting everywhere as Christians, I think this Cameroon will change.
Commemorative activities, which started from the 16th of February, culminated in this grand celebration with focus on proximity evangelical actions.
We have some intellectual activities where we do have reflections about how to be near to the Christians, how to make sure that they are spreading God's word. We go to those who are vulnerable. We also enjoying because it is a feast.
Recognize some church elders for their contribution to the success of the event.
In the Southwest region, an international tourism fair dubbed Wejeli Webwamu has been launched in Limbe under the patronage of the Minister of State, Minister of Tourism and Leisure, Maigari Bello Buba. The event, organized by Flora Travels and Tours in partnership with the Ministry of Tourism and Leisure, seeks to showcase the tourist potential of Cameroon in a bid to promote national development. Regina Ngalendoko with details from Boya.
From the black sandy beaches, the Lake Barombi, the Bimbia slave trade village, the Waza Park, to the Mount Cameroon, amongst others, the national territory of Cameroon is said to be endowed with great tourist potential, which is often undermined. Revalorizing the forgotten treasure is therefore the aim of the Wejeli Wegbamu Tourism Fair.
We came up with this idea that we should organize a tourism fair where in the future we'll be bringing in tour operators from all over the world to come in and see what we have, and then they will go back there and sell Cameroon to the potential tourists that we have out there.
The tourism fair, organized by Flora Travel and Tours in partnership with Mintol, will run from the 4th to the 7th of November 2020 with the goal to facilitate development.
Is going to bring a lot of credibility to the Southwest destination. The population has to feel the impact of tourism. We are hoping that many things will come to the region.
With the technical know-how gained, tourism stakeholders in the Southwest region are now poised to showcase the tourist potential of the region during the upcoming Shan 2020 and Cannes 2021.
The Swiss have been showcasing the importance of minorities to the social cohesion of their country. This was through an exposition of the Romanche culture, one of their smallest groups in Yaoundé at the French Institute. Charles Ebune has more.
A select crowd of diplomats, politicians, multiculturalism surrogates, plus others meet at the French Institute Yaoundé to watch the Swiss expose the potential of one of their minority groups.
The Romanche culture in Switzerland, it's a minority culture, but a very important one. We are talking about 44,000 people speaking Romanche.
On the stage to explain the Confederation policy towards the Romanche, is the Swiss ambassador to Cameroon, transformed as an actor and film director at the same time.
Since 1929, Romansh is an official language, and this year, for the first time, Switzerland is presenting Romansh overseas, and we are celebrating the diversity of Switzerland.
A plurilingual community, the Swiss use events like this to tell others how several minority groups can peacefully coexist without fear of extinction from dominant ones.
Romansh, it's a language where it's spoken in the eastern part of the country, and you have actually 5 different kinds of Romansh.
A film projection is done to accompany the explanation, and attendees left their hall with a sense of having learned something new for cohabitation.
And in sports, Cameroon's Intermediate Lions and Rwandan counterparts will play an international friendly tomorrow ahead of the upcoming Africa Nations Championship. Coaches of both teams have expressed their squad's readiness in prelude to Monday's game during a pre-match press conference at the Yaoundé Omnisport Stadium. Baldwin Sama was there and has the following details.
They came to Cameroon to intensify their preparations ahead of the upcoming African Nations Championship as 26 players and over 14 officials make up Team Rwanda present in Cameroon. Coach Vincent Mashami of Rwanda says Cameroon is a good litmus test for his team as they will use Monday's match to better prepare.
We are trying to acclimatize with the climate, with the weather of Cameroon. We're trying to get used to the food. We're trying to get used to the people, to the environment. I think it's going to help us on one side acclimatizing, and then on the other side also trying to put up our team to see how we build a team and how we're going to compete into this upcoming CHAN.
Coach Mashami already has an idea of his group opponents during the upcoming African Nations Championship and is working on how to secure victories.
We have a very tough group, like the coach said. You never underestimate anyone. Morocco is the defending champions. Uganda, we are always, teeth for tooth. Yeah, so I think it's going to be a very tough game, especially the opener.
Yves Clément Aroga, head coach of Team Cameroon on the spot, says he is happy with the preparation so far that have permitted him have an idea of his possible CHAN team.
I know some players, we know that they are there and they will go with us in CHAN, but we have to see another player. We can bring us different level.
Monday's international friendly is void of any stakes.
PWG of Bamenda have increased their chances of moving top the League One table after defeating Tonnerre of Yaoundé 1-0 this afternoon during the 24 outings. This as league leaders Colombo of Ja and Lobo lost to UMS of Loom on the same score margin. Romeo Kenyi has an update of the results in the following report.
By winning Tonnerre Kalara Club of Yaoundé 1-0 this Sunday in one of the 24 actions, PWG of Bamenda now occupies the second position on the log with 40 points. The Abakwa boys are now 2 points shy from league leaders Colombo of Ja and Lobo, who lost to UMS of Loom 0-1. Union of Douala created a major upset in Garoua, humiliating home side Cotton Sport 2-0. This defeat to the cotton farmers means they are now third on rankings with 39 points. The game pitting Fovo of Baham against Canon Sportif of Yaoundé ended on a 5-goal thriller, with Fovo thrashing their opponents 4-1. In the other confrontations, Young Sport Academy of Bamenda overpowered Avion Academy of Nkam 1-0, while Eding Sport of the Leke separated on a 0-0 draw with Stade Renard of Melon. Dragon FC of Yaoundé beat Panthère Sportif of Mdé 2-1, and Bambutos FC of Mbuda played a 1-1 tie with Apaches of Mfu. Out of the 9 matches played, 16 goals were recorded, with goal average per match standing at 1.77. The relegation zone is now dominated by Tonnerre Kalara Club of Yaoundé, Eding Sport of the Leke, and AS Fortuna of Mfu, all clubs from the Centre region.
That is where we put a cap on this edition of the 7:30 News. Join Atabadine Omari under 30 minutes for the news in French. Until then, it's bye from all of us. But you'll be in the company of Moki Edwin Kinzaka as from tomorrow. And I'll be here on Friday. Until then, it's bye from all of us on the 7:30 Crew.